Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. This is part 2 of a 3-part mini-series discussing the differences and the variances between the different Ticket to Ride maps. If you are completely new to Ticket to Ride, I would recommend watching one of my earlier videos in which I talk through the basic game mechanics. Although I use the USA map, the game mechanics in terms of generally how to kind of score, lay pieces, the kind of purpose of the game, it's all the same. So I'd recommend watching that one first if you're completely new. If you've used Ticket to Ride before, whether the board game physically or one of the versions on the PC or Xbox, and perhaps you're looking to get additional maps, maybe an expansion pack or something, then hopefully this guide will be of some value. So we covered the USA in the first part. We're going to cover Asia in the last part, and we're going to come on to Europe for this one. The USA map is where it all started in terms of a physical board, and there's a 3 variant 1910 pack as well. That all comes as a single expansion. Likewise in Europe we've got a single 3-pack expansion there, and the original Europe map. And we also covered Pennsylvania, which interestingly, Pennsylvania, in terms of the physical board game, I bought the Pennsylvania map as a flip side to the UK map, or perhaps the UK was the flip to Pennsylvania. But in any case, this pack here that I bought had a number of obviously the cards for the UK, and also in the box the Pennsylvania, and you flip the map over and you've got one map on one side and one on the other. So we covered Pennsylvania, we'll cover the UK in this one. So we'll start off with the Europe map, just generally. Perhaps you're familiar with the USA map, and you want to know what the difference is. Well, there's 3 new game mechanics, one of which was present in the Pennsylvania map, which is the concept of ferries. And we'll have a look at the map and we'll see how that varies shortly. The 2 other variants are actually tunnels and stations. Again, I'll go to the map and we can take a look. You can see the thumbnail of the map down the bottom here. It's a landscape laid out map. It's my preferred layout. Some maps are a portrait, for example the UK map. I prefer the layout of a landscape map, especially to play it physically at home. It just kind of fits the table space a little bit easier, I think. The expansion packs. So we'll go on to the European map, as I said, in a minute, and I'll just show you the variance between the USA one. Excuse me. The expansion pack. So if you were to buy it physically, you won't receive the map because it's presumed that you already have the map as part of the original game, and you also don't receive any train tokens to lay on the board. You have to have those. What you do receive is an entirely new set of destination cards. The destination cards include all of the original ones, but also add some additional ones as well. So you've got an entirely new set of destination cards, meaning that when you do decide to play the expansion, you don't have to kind of mix and match cards from both sets. You can keep them separate. The design layout is slightly different on the cards as well. So if we take a very quick look at the regular Europe cards, we'll see that we've got kind of like a brownie coloured card for the short routes, and kind of cards with bits of blue on for the long routes. They're a lot more colourful in the expansion, so we'll just go into one of the expansions. Oops. So talking about the 3 expansions, so the expanded pack, well actually first of all, so the cards that you get in addition to the regular cards you kind of that were already present in the base European map, you get 6 new long routes, you get 19 new regular routes, and you get 30 new big city routes. In the expanded game, just the kind of regular expanded game, what you actually do is you just mix in the 19 new regular routes with the original routes, again using just the cards from this set. You don't need those cards, but the routes that you would have got originally plus the 19 new ones, they'll get mixed in, shuffled up, excuse me, and then obviously kind of dealt out. You keep, I think you get 5 and you keep 2. Let's have a very quick look. No, so 4. So it's 4, but you keep 2. You can see actually a little bit more colourful there. And then in subsequent hands where we deal new tickets, we get just 3. Again, you can keep 1, 2 or 3. Let's go back out. So the mega variant, you basically put the we start off with the 6 new long routes. You add them to the original 6 long routes, shuffle them up, so you've got your 12 long routes. Every player is dealt 2 long routes, and they have to keep none or one of them. They can't keep both. In addition to the long routes, the remainder of the cards, the big cities and the regular cards, they're all shuffled together, and every player is dealt a further 5 cards. So you're dealt 7 cards effectively, 7 destination cards to begin with. You have to keep either 2 of the short routes if you chose to keep one of the long, or you have to keep a minimum of 3 short routes if you chose to keep none of the long routes. When you are dealt subsequent cards, again, just like the original game, you only get 3 cards and you get to keep at least one of them. So let's have a quick look there. So again, we've got our 7 cards, 2 of them are long. If I select 2 short ones, I can't play yet until I select another short one or one of the long ones. And when I do select a long one, the other one kind of dips down out of play. I can't have 2 long ones. I can add more cards though. I could select up to 6 cards to begin the game with if I so choose. You'll notice as well on the digital version we've got a little designation there, so we know we're playing the 1912 mega variant. Of course, on the physical board you don't have any notification. It will just be the regular Europe map, and you'll have to know what variant you're playing. So the big cities is slightly different, and we'll spend a bit of time on that because I'll talk through the 3 different game mechanics in the European map on here. So if we go to play that, again we've got the little designation here for big cities. One thing to note is on the big cities variant, all of the long routes are discarded, so we've got none of the long routes. In fact, all of the regular routes that don't go through the big cities are discarded, and by that what I mean is on the physical cards there's a kind of a designation to show you that a particular destination will go through a big city or not. So it might even be the fact that it's got the green writing against the red. Let me double check. I think that's what it is. So you can see the tickets here. We've got kind of green to green, that's I think big city to big city, green to red, big city to another destination. I think that's the designation. Let's go back and have a very quick look. Yeah, so you can see there we've got kind of red to red, and you know there's no kind of green text there. The big cities, let's go back. The big cities, you only have cards in the physical deck. You want to keep the ones that have got green on them because they designate that they're going through a big city. So yeah, the big cities variant, you get 5 to begin with. You have to select at least 2. For subsequent draws, you actually get 4, I believe. Yeah, and you have to select at least 1, but you can select more. So on the physical sorry, on the digital board, you can see there's little marks for each of the big cities that you can go through. The ones that are kind of just black like that, kind of greyed out, I guess. You can see a black ring and then sort of a little cityscape inside that. That's obviously a city we don't need to go through. The ones that we've kind of highlighted at the moment is kind of blue, and the ones that we've not highlighted but we need to go through are green. So if I go to a different card, we'll see that they all kind of change around. So there are 9 big cities. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 big cities, and as I said, the big cities variant, we're only playing through those. So we'll stay on this map for now, and I'll just show you the 3 different game mechanics that are present in the Ticket to Ride Europe over the US. So one of the things that was later introduced into the Pennsylvania map first started off in Europe, and that is the concept of ferries. So ferries, if we zoom in here, these are pieces of track that go over a body of water. So for example, London to Dieppe or London to Amsterdam, we need to travel over a body of water here, and so we need for Amsterdam 2 locomotives. For London to Dieppe we need 1 locomotive and then 1 other coloured card, and we can see up here where Essen goes to, I'm not quite sure where that is. Is that Copenhagen perhaps? Then yeah, we need 1 locomotive and 2 regular kind of train cards, just as a normal grey route. So that's the concept of locomotives. The concept of stations, we've got 3 stations here. Now I have to admit, I re-recorded this video after trying to demonstrate how you use stations in the digital game and realising I'd not used them before and I didn't quite know how to do it. For some reason you can't kind of click on them and place them and do things. But what should happen is, I'll stack a couple of cards while we're talking, but what should happen is if your opponent lays a track and it's something that you particularly wanted, you're able to actually put a station in place and still use that piece of track as part of yours. So this is a really good example. So let's say I had a route that went from, I don't know, let's say Edinburgh all the way through to Marseille. Well, obviously there's a couple of ways I can get to Marseille, but I particularly wanted to go through Paris to Marseille. Maybe I also have another route that takes me from Paris to München, for example, or to Sofia. I really want to go through that route, and perhaps it's later in the game as well. Perhaps I don't have enough pieces to circumvent Paris to Marseille by taking 4 down to Pamplona and then 3 across to Marseille. That's going to cost me 7 pieces versus the 4. Using the station, what you can do is place the station between the 2 locations and effectively use that as a bypass. So you don't need to lay any pieces, you just put your station there, and then if you had, let's say we had Brest to Paris already linked up, and Marseille to Roma already linked up, by putting a station there I've completed that route. I don't need to circumvent it, I don't need to lay an additional track. The downside to laying stations is at the end of the game you well, it's not that you lose points for using stations, it's more that for any stations that are unused you get some additional points. As I said, interestingly, I've never used it on the digital game, and I can't seem to work it out. So if anyone knows how to do that in the digital game, please let me know in the comments. But whether you're playing physical or digital, the concept is the same, that potentially using a station means that you can save placing pieces and bypass a piece of track that's already taken by an opponent. So The last game mechanic is the concept of tunnels, and I think it's quite a clever idea. You know, like in real life, you kind of go through a tunnel. Perhaps you got no real idea of how long it is. It's just dark, and you know you wait until you get out the other side of the tunnel. And the concept here is that when you place a tunnel, you don't know how many pieces of track that you'll need for that tunnel to complete, even though it might show like 2 spaces here between Venezia and Munchen. We don't know that it's going to cost us 2. 3 cards are drawn from the deck when we place a tunnel, and if any of those 3 cards match the same colour as we are placing for our tunnel, then we have to pay those additional cards. So a really good example is I've got 2 blue spaces there. If I want to lay a tunnel, what I'd probably do as a strategy, I can see I've got blue here, I'd take a blue card before I play, or rather make sure I've got at least one more card in my hand, because when I play this, have a look down here and we'll see whether or not a blue card or a locomotive, which obviously substitutes as a blue card, comes up. So let's have a look. So I'm going to drop this here. Remember to keep an eye down here. Blue card, there we go. So I've already got a blue card in my hand, so it's saying, do I want to pay that additional kind of tariff as a blue card? So it's going to cost me 3 pieces rather than the 2. There'll be some circumstances where it's strategically better to say, no, I'm going to hold back. You know, perhaps I'm also looking to get Petrograd to Vilno, and that's 4 blue cards. Well, if I give up one of my blue cards here, it's kind of a bit of a waste. I'm probably going to spend another turn picking a blue card. The downside to turning down the option to pay is you lose your turn. So you either accept and pay up, or you lose your turn. Now, if I didn't have, if let's say a locomotive came up, it would still show me, you know, do I want to pay with a blue card, because I've got an additional blue card. However, if I didn't have 3 blue cards, I only had 2, it would then offer me, do I want to pay with one of my locomotives to cover that? So I'm going to say yes to that. Now I'm going to see if I can lay another piece where I don't have enough. So let's see, let's go red. So I actually do have enough red in terms of 2 red and a joker, which can kind of double as a red. Let's see, it probably will go wrong here. Again, look down to the bottom right, we'll see whether a red or a locomotive comes up. It did, a locomotive came up. It just kind of ended my go for me. So I wasn't able to place that there, because even if I wanted to pay an additional tariff, I don't have the cards in my hand. So I'm going to have another go. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is, yeah, let's have another go there. No, sorry, actually let's play some orange. So I've got orange there. Actually, I only meant to play 1 piece. Let's get another piece, another orange. Actually, no, green. Oh no, now I've got another green. Yellow. Yeah, let's go yellow. So I'm hoping it will show me that a yellow comes out, or a joker, and I'm going to have to pay with the joker. So let's see. Okay, there we go. So do I want to pay with my additional locomotives? Yes, I do. So that's going to cost me there. That's quite interesting, because as I've been doing it here, pretty much every time I've put down, I've had to pay up a bit extra. It doesn't quite happen as regularly as that. Of course, you can use grey routes as well, and choose any colour. And obviously, if I'm choosing green, green would need to come out. It didn't, so there we go. It only cost me 2 pieces. So that's the tunnel mechanic. It can mean that, you know, on a two-piece length of track, it's going to cost you up to 5 pieces. Sometimes it's worth paying that tariff if you're towards the end of the game, you need to link up 2 locations. Of course, one of the other things is when you get additional cards that you have to lay, you know, maybe on a 2-piece you have to lay 5 cards, you still only need to lay 2 pieces of train. Likewise, you only get points equivalent to 2 trains that you've laid. So there we go. So that's the additional mechanics in the European map. There's actually one other thing I should mention that is present on the physical map but not on the digital version, and that is in the European expansion is the concept of depots and warehouses, and they don't bring that into the digital version. But interestingly, as it says in the instructions, the depots and warehouses concept can actually be used on any other game, any other board. It doesn't have to be one of the European variants. You can use the warehouses and depots on the US board. You basically receive some additional cards. You start off with a warehouse, and in that warehouse you've got 5 depots, and you can place those depot pieces. They're like little tokens, little round tokens, and you can place them anywhere on any of the kind of the little dots that demark where the kind of the cities are. So let's say, for example, I place one onto Danzig. What happens is every time before you draw cards for your go, you draw one blind card and you place it in a depot against a depot card. So basically you're stacking up cards at a particular location, and so is your opponent. Now if you or your opponent should create a route that goes through one of those depots, and it doesn't have to be a complete route, you could perhaps play, I don't know, a depot card in London, and you could have a route that goes from Edinburgh to Madrid. As soon as you go through that, if you go Edinburgh through to London, you can then claim all of those cards that were in that depot and obviously remove that depot from the board. So it's an interesting game mechanic because you or your opponent can stack cards, and effectively if you place it on a part of your route and you know that your opponent doesn't need it, potentially drawing those blind cards and putting them in the depot means you're just stacking additional cards that you don't know what they are for collection later on. Likewise, perhaps your opponent is stacking a load of cards in a depot they've put on a route that they're using that isn't part of your route. However, let's say it was just here in Wien. If I go between Budapest and Wien, for one card I can pick up all those cards that were stacked in that depot. So A, I'm kind of maybe messing up my opponent, but B, I'm picking up a whole heap of additional cards. So it's quite an interesting game mechanic, something though not available on the digital version. So we'll go back out of here. So we've talked at length about Europe, and I'll cut this video short now, and then when we come back we'll take a look at the other maps of Europe, and then we'll also have a look at the maps of Asia as well in that last part. We'll try and keep it to 3 parts. We might get to part 3 and it might become a 4-part. Let's wait and see. But for now, I'll sign off and say thank you for watching, and see you again soon.